Hi, guys. Welcome to the Opinions That Matter, where we explore the interaction of mental health, pop culture, literature, books, movies, and much more. Join us as we explore the difficulties of life and our human experience through insightful discussions with our special guests. Hi, welcome to the Opinions That Matter. Today we have Naumika Khanna, a clinical psychology graduate, and she is here to talk about a very important topic, that is chronic illness and mental health, which is non communicable diseases, that is NCDs. So non communicable diseases include lung cancer, heart disease, or any kind of cancer, or any lung disease, and diabetes, and anything that affects one's overall health and life, and it is chronic and usually goes for a lifetime. So, hi Namika, how are you?
Question. It's very nice to meet you, and it's my pleasure to be at your podcast and contribute to some of my views. And do you want me to explain my journey towards NCTs in mental health?
Yes, I would like you to tell the audience why you have selected this wonderful topic, and yeah, I think it would be great.
Yeah. So, I was born completely normal, Gushan. However, at the age of 7 years, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. At 8, I was struck with hypothyroidism, and at 15 years of age, epilepsy struck me like a lightning bolt. At 23 years of age, I underwent a neurosurgery, which unfortunately failed, leaving my cognitions, emotions, behavior altered. It left me vulnerable, and it also left me angry. From being a completely normal girl who enjoyed her life to being a girl that had too many restrictions, too many if and then, my life changed overnight. Also, I would say, even though such changes were happening in my body, Christian, um, such restrictions, such vulnerability also gave me a voice to advocate for people all around the world, from Africa to India, South Asia, who also must be having right now, right here, similar experiences of living with NCDs and mental health disorders.
Yes, right. So I know about your journey personally, and we talked about your epilepsy struggles as well in the last episode that we did together. So, when we talk about non
Absolutely.
communicable diseases, we usually think about cancer, heart disease, or, diabetes. So, what are we missing in this conversation?
Yeah. Um, Actually, non-communicable diseases is a very multifaceted and multi-diverse area. Most conversations around NCD stop at being big names like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases that you just mentioned. But NCD actually include a wider spectrum of diseases like asthma, epilepsy, autoimmune disorder, PCOS, PCOD, to thyroid and other metabolic conditions, which leaves a person quite dysfunctional in his areas of, occupational functioning, academic functioning, social functioning, and even relationships. What's miss also is the invisible pain that they carry, the emotional exhaustion, the fear of stigma, and the disrupted daily life of young people who actually just look fine but are battling something constantly inside. We rarely talk about mental health and the toll it takes upon an individual when he or she or even they have any kind of illness or just mental health separately. How these long term conditions are responsible for affecting the self esteem, motivation, body image, sense of self, and even relationship identity. Most of the time, people with NCDs are also discriminated upon on every area of.
Right. I absolutely agree with you. When it comes to chronic illness, very few people can understand someone's struggle if they have not been through it. And it's so important for us to talk about this because it highly impacts one's mental health. And it's definitely a topic that needs more attention. So, why do you think, like, even today, if we talk about chronic illnesses or we talk about mental illnesses, it's whispered in college canteens, college campuses, in schools, and there are so many people who
Yeah.
gossip about the person who is going through something like this. And I don't know, I think we have come a long way. Our generation wants to talk about it. Our generation is very, open about it. But the stigma still remains, especially when it comes to school environments. I think there is a lot of stigma still. Why do you think that is?
That's a nice question because, like you said, that it's just not limited to college canteens and, schools and various areas. It's also, generalizable to various areas such as within the family, the relatives, and even the workplace. Many people in the workplace don't want to hire a person who is having any kind of NCT because of the fear and the taboo that is related to the NCT. And even though we are traveling to Mars and are at the top of our innovations, but still we are very low in understanding people who are having NCDs and associated mental health consequences. Because even in 2025, there is still a deep cultural discomfort with the vulnerability that is associated with them. There is a fear of being judged, pitied, or labeled with NCT. Chronic illnesses are often seen too intense, too personal, or even too sensitive to talk over a cup of coffee, especially in youth spaces where health should be equated with freedom, energy, and invisibility. And when it comes to mental health, the shame actually doubles. People say things like, don't overthink, and it's just a phase in India. You must have heard it. People who are going through depression, even mild or severe, or anxiety, they are like, their parents and relatives are like, it happens to everyone, it's just a phase, or you're too young to be stressed. And so students kind of suppress and hide their panic attacks, mask their fatigue, push through flare ups until the complete burnout and poor prognosis happens. So we need to make, the normalization of chronic illnesses and mental illnesses, and make empathy and softness to be safe again, to be talked again, not with taboo, but with pride.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, I actually agree with your thought where you say that when it comes to mental illness, the shame doubles. It definitely doubles. And it affects a person's ability to, express themselves freely because they don't feel like, obviously, you don't want to express yourself when you're going through so much. And when you are told that you
Yeah.
are just making things up, you don't want to express yourself, obviously. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. And how do you think, like gender, class, and caste affect how we view these illnesses and how these illnesses are diagnosed and treated? How does that affect?
Yes, actually, it's a very important topic, and it just not applies to India. It applies to her sister countries also. For example, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal. Also, all of these countries in South Asian region. Here, intersectionality matters deeply. A young, urban, upper class boy might get an early diagnosis and therapy for ADHD and a good prognosis, for example. But imagine a rural, low strata delicate with epilepsy might be called possessed or face forced school dropout levels. Gender roles affect everything from who is believed when they say. For example, I'm in pain to who has control over their own medical decisions. When girls say that I'm in pain, I'm feeling hurt, or and when they show social withdrawal, people take them is that there she's acting, she's too sensitive, and maybe just it's just a phase. Get out of it. And actually, if it was so easy to get out of it, then people would already get out of it. But it's actually a part where they need support. Also, trans and non binary youth that we have in our community today are even more at risk of being medically neglected and mistreated by the society and doctors themselves. Class impacts access to specialists, nutrition, and long term care. Caste still determines whose pain is visible and whose pain is ignored. Until we recently address these structural biases, we will not be truly talking about health equity.
Right, absolutely. Um, and how do you think we can bring about this change and start talking about these things openly, especially when it comes to chronic illness and mental health? Because so many things come under chronic illness, so many people go through chronic fatigue syndrome as well, which doesn't let them function, which just ruins their ability to function like a normal human being, just like depression. And sometimes these things can coexist, and they often coexist. And people are called lazy,
Yeah.
good for nothing, and that they don't want to do anything. So, how can we, answer those people when we are told these things?
Yeah. I think that uh, for this, I'd like to start with a quote that only the sufferer knows who is, how much is the suffering. And this quote was given by a very famous author, Jodi Pickett. I hope you know that, right? So I think we should build a youth-led uh, conversation, and we should start where we are. Share our stories and let others share too. We should build a safe community, whether it's a digital zone, a college mental health club, a campus safe space. And by the safe space, I mean the one in which a person with any NCD is safe enough to express through any form, be it art, be it poetry, be it even extempore, to whatever he feels and vent out those emotions, and actually which actually leads to what I call in psychology a form of catharsis, which is very important. And all of these things are very important. True inclusion means listening deeply, passing the mic to others, and also creating policies with intersectionality that I just talked about in mind, and calling out token gestures that don't lead to real support. Young people are not waiting anymore today, and we are already transforming the spaces with our lived experiences and loud truths. So, basically, what I mean to say here is that be it any NCD and the existing comorbidities, or be it any mental illness itself, we are not just young people today, and even children today, even adults today are not just identities that are mislabeled, and they are patients in the old hospital reports, right, with prescriptions, but they are actually souls that exist and speak at global codes. So by giving a stance to the people who are lived experience, we can actually create a lot of change. And another point is that psychoeducation, by bringing change at the individual level, then at the peer level, then at the society level, familial level. That is very important. For example, um, how would you even become for example, if a person is suffering from depression and goes to a counselor, but then again the family gives him certain negative talk about himself, how would he recover? Until and unless the family also takes an effort to make themselves change, and community level, society level. It's a these are the various pillars of psychoeducation that would basically, create a change. It's not just the onus does not lies on one person, but onus lies on everybody. Everybody should do and take a share of their part.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. It doesn't lie only on one person, but on everyone. It's a collective effort.
What do you think? What's your thought about it?
I think we need to let people speak. We need to let people express themselves when they are talking about certain things. We should not dismiss their struggles. We should not, be that क्लोज माइंडेड दैट वी शुड बी लाइक अरे ये तो ऐसे ही बोलती रहती है या इसको कोई और काम नहीं है और वट एवर या ये रोता रहता है लड़कियों की तरह क्यों रो रहा है और वट एवर we need to listen to people when they talk about their struggles. We need to listen to them and we need to maybe you know try to have some kind of understanding about what they are going through. If somebody is talking about something, their very personal experience or their struggle, that is a big societal issue, you know so I think
Yeah.
that's very important.
And I think that listening should include one of the three most important things that I mean, you and I have both studied in psychology, that is, listen with empathy and with congruence and with unconditional positive regard, whether it is a peer group or, any place else, online, offline, and, any place. And I think UNICEF has given me plenty opportunities to, express myself with these three important components, which has led me to basically become a really empowered girl today. Honestly, UNICEF really plays a good role in that.
That's wonderful. All the work that you do and all the advocacy that you do for things that people don't want to talk about. So,
Absolutely.
how do you think mental health support is available in rural areas? Is it even available for people with NCDs, chronic illnesses, or is it just the
Hmm.
privilege of the urban?
Metros, right?
Yeah,
So, unfortunately, I would say, as a student of clinical counseling and child psychopathology, have been in this field for such a long amount of time. Mental health services in rural India are still minimal to non-existent at many places. Non-existent in places, especially the tribal areas. While physical NCDs may be detected at primary healthcare centers that we are having, everywhere. There's almost no integration of psychosocial care. No psychiatrist, no counselor, no psychologist are actually present there to deal with issues such as schizophrenia. There's a shortage of actually trained professionals. Cultural taboos are all around mental illness, and there is a very little amount of digital literacy to access online therapy. For example, the government introduced telemanas, which you and I know that it's very famous form of therapy, crisis intervention. However, imagine a person talking in English or Hindi, but the call goes from a person who is speaking, Bengali or Bihari. Then how would the therapy happen? There needs to be culturally and language informed people who are able to give therapy. And honestly, therapy happens on one-on-one basis, because mental status examination, as we all know, is also a very important component of any mental health diagnosis. So, in these cases, especially in rural areas, many families actually rely on faith healers, on these what in India we call quacks, the ones that are available at temples, or either suffer in silence. In urban areas, while many resources do exist, they remain fragmented in a bubble. For example, therapy, many people say it's only for the rich, not for the middle class or not for the, low street of society, because it's very expensive. So, for example, imagine for a middle class family like you and I, if a therapy costs 2,000 rupees per session, a family would basically say that it's not required and unjustifiable because they may rather pay it on tuitions or, to another doctor who is treating, any other kind of illness or, any other, for example, ration shops as compared to therapy. That is why there is a need for community health workers, peer support groups, and school based mental health interventions which can bridge the gap. And we should scale them as youth.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And I also feel that people don't understand the difference between just counseling and therapy, specific therapies, because when you have actually been through a lot of things that, your problems are severe and you need in depth healing, then you go to, therapy, and you do a certain kind of therapy, whether it is CBT, DBT, trauma informed therapy, art therapy, dance therapy, whatever works for the person. And when people go to counselors, they are like, "Mujhe koi farak nahi pada," and I'm like, "You didn't actually try the, actually in depth therapy. तुमने नहीं try की है अभी तक, and you need to try that if you are really struggling."
Absolutely, I agree with your view because in India there is a misinformation. People are not informed. They think that taking a session from a counselor once would solve all their problems. They think that the counselor knows about them, can read their mind, which is actually a myth. And think that one or two counseling sessions will serve as a magic pill and will completely fix them. But it's actually not true. Basically, counseling is for daily life hassles. For example, it could be, a marriage problem. We apply marriage and relationship counseling there, and it could be due to some family issues that are happening. Or if a person is not assertive, then assertiveness training is required. Like you said, there are certain amount of therapeutic styles. For example, if it is, a therapy for dissociative identity disorder, then we can apply psychoanalytical school of thought. And if it's for PTSD, then trauma informed therapy. Then there is grief therapy for when grief eats you like a ghost, and some other kinds of therapy. Art, you mentioned, DBT, dance, all apply to different things. All in all, it's basically that different disorders do require different kinds of therapies, and they have to be customized according to the individual. For example, action oriented therapies are very important for people who for some people, if a phobia has to be minimized, then we can apply systematic desensitization, which is a form of a behavioral therapy. That's it. So I would say that the proper requirement, the knowledge of therapy can already be done by people who are licensed and counselors who are well educated. And this knowledge is not available with quacks. Most of the time, what people meet and those who advertise themselves as complete healers are actually quacks. They have no license with them, and it's a very harmful thing because they can actually cause more harm than good to the
Yes,
individual.
absolutely, because it has happened with me that certain things actually caused more harm, made me more depressed than, actually getting me out of it, because certain I respect the spiritual and religious beliefs of people and why it comforts them. It's very understandable that, people have found solutions around those things, but I think in mental health, and if we talk about chronic illnesses, it should not be taken that lightly, and it should be taken very seriously, because it can be counterproductive if you do something that is only going to, exaggerate your problem. I think we have to be very
Yeah, and
careful
we don't
around
want
this.
that.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yes. So why do you think therapy is so expensive still and inaccessible to the young population?
But so, oh my God, this is a very good question. It's expensive, and because it's a very, actually, honestly, it's a very practical question in today's time. Because therapy in India and also its sister countries that I mentioned uh, often exist in a private bubble and not as a public service. It is not covered, first of all, by many insurance companies, not available in most colleges at a, that you suggested, like counselors should know various techniques and should refer to various other areas, and, psychiatrist. And that's still a perception that it's still for the privileged or the broken people.
Hmm.
Moreover, language barriers, cultural mismatch that happens, lack of good trained therapists, and patronizing approaches are also making therapy feel distant in our country. And honestly, in a middle class household, like I explained, people don't want to spend on therapy. And imagine the case of a household with a low class household in which there is barely food to eat. See, diseases like schizophrenia, like depression, don't really come on the basis of class and
Priority.
caste. They
Yeah.
happen to anybody at any point of time, to any gender, and they don't really discriminate. But the thing is that India requires approaches, and psychiatrists and counselors at primary health level, so that proper therapy, proper medications can be required for them, so that they do not become a case of bad prognosis and they do not suffer that much. So we need a paradigm shift, honestly, where
Yeah.
therapy is seen as preventive, it is seen
Hmm.
as affordable, and youth adaptive, because youth is a time when we are changing. Actually, I would like to say puberty is a time when we really change because of the hormones and everything. It is also a time when we are prone to various kind of issues like, um, you know, uh, gender, kind of like imaginary audience, what we say, and when we think that everybody is looking at us, but something like that, the body image, and
Right.
depression, anxiety, right? So I feel that in lieu of that, actually, mental health should also be a part of school curriculums, public health packages, and peer-led models. That's it.
Yes, absolutely. How do you think healthcare in our country would look like if we heard the young voices?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. This, since we are discussing about young people, why not actually look at the healthcare? I think healthcare, if it was listened to young voices, it would be radically different. First, it would meet us where we are, right now, right here. People use social media, whether it's rural or it's urban areas.
Mm.
Everybody has access to, smartphones. They have access to WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, even rural panchayats, urban campuses, and NGOs, which can serve the people in educating, disseminating information about NCDs, such as diabetes and, PT, diabetes, and then we can say CVDs, and how many NCDs are there? There's the whole list. And also mental health illnesses such as depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. I think mental health illnesses and alone, as well as mental health illnesses as a comorbidity of NCDs exist and are part of the same coin. I
Right.
think when youth design clinics and policies for them, not just for others, we'd see more counselors in colleges, more gender inclusive forms, for example, more flexible telehealth associations, not just telemanas, but more, language associated, culturally slang associated. For example, in India, um, we call in Punjabi the meaning of, um, a feeling of restlessness कि मुझे call पड़ रहा है. But maybe in South India it must be something else. And respectful conversations that believe that our pain is real and
Hmm.
our hurt is real, and they should be validated in line with our experiences. And most of all, it would give youth not just a seat at the table, but a mic or decision making power, because we're just not patients. In old hospital reports with a list of prescriptions and UHID number that we are given at hospitals, but we are souls that speak at global codes. Yes, survivors, we are also creators and we are change makers. And most importantly, we are the most resilient people whose story needs to be heard. But Gurshan, I would like to ask you the same question. What do you think would happen if, it was a healthcare systems will actually listen to young voices?
I think a lot of things would be heard and a lot of pain would stop being dismissed, because finally our generation is definitely speaking about things that nobody wanted to ever speak about. A lot of elders, still think that um therapy is just going outside and playing and spending time with your family, and they think that we need extra therapy somehow because we are not going out and playing, or we are in front of a screen. That's the only reason we need therapy, which is so untrue, because trauma has always existed, pain has always existed, depression has always existed, but we never wanted to look within and actually see what was going on, you know. And when finally our generation is doing that, then we are being, told ki oh tum log sensitive ho, tum ye ho, tum wo ho. So I don't agree with those elder people who think like that, because certain things can be therapeutic, but it does not equal therapy. Me
Absolutely.
being in therapy for 5 years, I know that it's very different from actually going out and just playing, even as a kid, or spending time with your family or your dog or whatever. So those things are important for
Yeah,
sure, but they don't replace therapy. And I think these ideas will
I
be
agree.
integrated and be understood more if we the young generation is heard and understood, and there will be a lot of
Hmm.
awareness.
I agree. And the thing that elders say, my elders also say that in fact every youth and child elders would say that go play and go interact with others, but when you are suffering from depression, it's a state of social withdrawal. You can't,
You
you may
can't.
put a smile on your face, but in reality you are crying from the inside, and only therapy can save you, or maybe somebody who is qualified enough can actually guide you through in life, so that you can actually go ahead in life. And until and unless you're mentally healthy, you cannot be physically healthy,
Exactly, I
and
agree
vice
with you.
versa.
I agree with you. So, how do you think, how are we going to bring about this change? Like, we are talking about this here, we are creating some space. But I would love for, even elder generation to understand these things. Even so many people from our own generation don't understand these things. And it's very sad. They have a very, narrow point of view. And they don't actually understand the depth of suffering that a person with
Yeah,
mental health condition goes through. And it's very hard to explain, honestly, but I think it's needed. And people going through chronic illness, young people going through so much right now, because the world has changed. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago. And if we think कि oh हमें नहीं होनी चाहिए चीजें, then we are actually being very unfair to ourselves, because the world has changed and things have been affecting us in ways that maybe पहले नहीं थी. But the truth is, abuse and trauma always existed. That was always there. But now the work conditions are different. There is so much. There is so much asked of us, and I
Absolutely.
totally agree when people say that every generation faces something. You know,
Yeah,
and I think the people need to stop berating our generation for that, because they have also not lived our lives. So what?
absolutely. It's,
Hmm.
not until you go into the shoes of others, you may not able to understand the suffering.
Yes. So, what is one thing that you would, have wanted to know before you suffered from chronic illness? If you knew one thing that would get you through before, if you knew that you would be suffering from chronic illness, what is one thing you would like to say the young people who are going through it?
Then I would like to say that to all the people, honestly, as a mental health advocate, as a UNICEF youth champion and delegate, that we are not lazy, we are not active, we are not negative, we are not even making any kind of excuses, but we are navigating life with a body that's a little unpredictable and a brain that's constantly feeling here and there, which is okay because some days we shine, some days we shut down. It's not constant. But through it all, we are learning resilience, patience, and how to advocate, not just for ourselves here, but for others too. For others who cannot speak, for others who are coming from restrictive families, for others who have ideas, who have similar illnesses, but they want those policies in place. So, and also so that our efforts today make up for the generations to come because we want that. We do not want other people to suffer. We don't want that their dreams should get shut down or they should feel so bad that have got this particular illness such as epilepsy or diabetes or anything else and I can't live now. We want that you are here, you should be accepted. And most of us, actually, I want that even though there are certain things that I'm saying out loud, I would want all the people to be like, included by their own families, by clinics, by their homes, by their peer groups, and not pitied. We want empathy. We don't want sympathy. We want
Yes.
accommodation. We don't want ignorance. We don't need any kind of perfection or completely, all that glitter is gold, but we need a form of understanding. And most important thing, all of this set aside, we don't want, these are all interpersonal things that we are
Yes.
talking about. But the thing that I also wanted to talk about was we want intrapersonal understanding also. And it is only when you're accommodated in a proper manner, it's only when you're accepted by your caregivers that you are able to, flourish intrapersonally because it's all, part and parcel of life. If you are trying to change, but the others don't want you to change, then it gets a little difficult. We want support because we are doing this for the people, by the people, for us, by us. And that's
Correct.
all that I wanted to say. Self acceptance is also a very important part. And Gushran, I would like to ask your views for the same question.
Um, I think if I knew one thing before all of this, it would be that being different is okay. I would want myself to know that being different is okay and that I don't have to fit into something that doesn't suit me. And also that, I'm going to survive all this and things are going to get better. If I only wanted to say that to myself, that would be very, very. helpful.
Really nice, amazing. Completely agree with your views.
Okay, so Naumika, how do you think we can support the people with chronic illnesses? And do you think caregivers also should receive mental health support when they are caring for someone with chronically uh, ill condition or mental illness or something like that?
Absolutely. Just like I mentioned, people with chronic care illnesses can be supported by introducing, and actually today there are in place various laws by the government, such as the Mental Health Care Act, the RPWD Act, and the Ayushman Bharat Act today in India, which people can make use of, they can access with chronic illnesses. However, regarding these acts, actually the implementation, disseminating of information and access to people for these apps actually remains still poor. And by introducing life skills, making therapy available at a little low rate, subsidizing the amount of therapy, and at introducing them at primary health care centers. For example, today even in Chandigarh, the same city that we live in, they in primary healthcare centers there's always a general physician and maybe even a dentist, right? But there is no psychiatrist, there's no counselor, there's no psychologist available, right? So the implementation of these rules need to be there. The importance of psychoeducation in schools and colleges is very important, and introducing early interventions such as sensitization of uh, sensitization regarding mental health illness, sensitization regarding NCDs, and normalizing them and not treating them as a taboo is a very important topic. And also, like I said, life skills can be introduced. If they're not introduced, then at college level, they should be implemented. Actually, they should be made part of a curriculum. But
Hmm.
if it's not possible, still, people should get this information even through social media like Instagram, Twitter, etc. Like I said, there are plenty methods at individual, societal, familial, and even peer level. Because, like I said, how can a person be completely healthy even after therapy if their family environment is completely toxic? That would completely lead to reverse. So that is why the family environment also needs to change. The peer pressure also needs certain considerations into mind, right? And all of these issues are important. And as for the second part of the question, um, the importance of caregiver burden. Yes, to anyone who's suffering from NCD, take it a child, take it an adolescent, or even take it a person who is and of old years, like geriatric, right? When one person of the family suffers, the whole family also suffers in India, especially in collectivistic society. It happens so. So here what we can do is that we can introduce various policies, because today in India, as you and I both know, that there are no insurance, there is no monetary support, as well as there is no outlet to express the grief of the caregivers today. If there's one single person who is earning, such as a father or a mother, he or she is overburdened with the finances as well as the emotional burden to take care of that child. Not
Yes.
that they don't love him, but because they have the responsibility and there are no available outlets of expressing grief, of expressing their own and venting out in a, proper manner. There should be peer support groups. There should be, the doctor should also listen to them, not just the patient. That is the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is so much grief in these things, because even the person suffering from it loses so much. You know, there is a sense of
Absolutely.
loss that's there. And it's same for the caregivers as well. So yes, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with the grief support group that is definitely needed. So, what is one myth that you would like to break about NCDs and mental health?
Yeah, one myth. Actually, there are plenty, honestly. So, but I think I can just say that the most common myth that I experienced was that you don't look sick. It doesn't mean that you're not suffering.
Yeah.
And illness always does not wear visible scars, such as type 1 diabetes, such as, uh, depression, any form of mental illness, mental fatigue, hormonal imbalances, chronic pain. They are often silent, but they are deeply, distressing. And there's another that mental health is just about positivity. No,
Mm.
it is not just about positivity, it is not a magic pill. In fact, positivity all around is called toxic positivity. Mental health addresses the concept of the actual definition of mental health is that the it doesn't mean 100% absence of mental struggles. It actually means reduction in the or reduced mental struggles and dysfunction so that a person can live normal life. There's
Absolutely.
actually
Mm.
not even a day that where you can have all happiness. That's not
Yes,
possible.
that's
It's more
unrealistic.
about, right? Don't you think that it's more about access, equity, trauma informed care, and
Yes,
systems that work with us, not against us?
absolutely. The system that works with us, for us, and not against us. Absolutely.
What do you think about the same question, Gushan?
Hmm.
A myth that you always battled with.
Yes. Um, I personally think that one myth that I would like to break about chronic illness or basically mental illness is that um, people are not lazy when they are expressing what they are going through, their symptoms. That doesn't mean that they are doing it purposefully. जानबूझ के नहीं कोई कर रहा and कोई भी इसलिए नहीं कर रहा because they just wanna be lazy and just laid back attitude. People are not lazy, and it's very insensitive and unempathetic to call, unempathetic to call someone lazy when they are actually expressing a very valid and real, concern about their health, whether it is mental health or any other chronic illness.
Absolutely.
So, what do you want to say to that one person who is listening to this podcast and silently suffering through some chronic illness or mental illness, which is chronic? What would you like to say to that person?
Well, that's quite a powerful question, honestly. And okay, to any person, to any child, an adolescent, young adult, or even an anybody from any walk of life, any religion, I just want you to know that you are not broken, you are not weak, you are not alone. You are navigating your life incredibly and in a very resilient manner. You have immense courage and strength. You deserve care, self care, actually, rest,
Self compassion.
community support, absolutely, and love. Your pain is validated, it is real, and even if others don't see it right now, you are still allowed to ask for help without guilt at any point of time. You should not engage in self doubt. Keep showing up, but also allow yourself to rest. Not just the physical one, but also the mental one. Take some time off. Reunite with yourself. You are more than your diagnosis. You're just not the labels that doctors put you in. You are more. Your disease does not define you, right? Your disease may be just a part of you, but as an individual, you're like a rainbow, complete, whole, diverse individual. You are so full, you're so vibrant, and you're a human being. You are like a story worth hearing and a story worth continuing. If anything happens right now, it happens for a reason. I can understand that it may seem very angry, you may seem very angry or anything else, but then still you have to get going because that's how the life is. You have to go and always get going through thick or thin.
I absolutely
What would you
agree. I would
what
like
would
to
you say
say,
that
I would like to say to that person that it's okay to rest. It's okay to take breaks. You don't always have to win any race. Life is not a race. Life is not a race. And it's
yeah,
okay to be different. If you don't, fit into this conventional and traditional aspects and ways of society, that's totally fine, because that's what makes you unique, and you have maybe a different purpose in life that others don't. And you don't have to
absolutely.
feel sorry for being different. That's actually what makes you extraordinary, and you don't have to feel unworthy. Your illness does not define you. And even if you are having any kind of mental health condition, it does not mean that you are weak.
I think that another thing that what I would like to suggest is that you don't need to fit according to the standards of the society because
Yes.
society will always judge you. Life comes once, and then if life comes once, you better live it according to yourself. Before you know, it has, we say that we should live life with a lot of happiness because you don't know when life will come and when life will go.
Yeah, we
And
don't
we
know
should
that.
not leave ourselves with regrets.
But I think it's also okay to live with sadness if that's what life has given you for some moments, because
Absolutely.
you need to feel that sadness in order to get to the joy, because if we don't feel the pain, we don't feel the joy, because life exists in duality, and we can't just, go to one spectrum and just lay there, one end of the spectrum, and, just sit over there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's, I think,
Yeah.
something very important.
Amazing. It was amazing having
Stop
these
feel guilty
thoughts
for
put
being
into my
sad.
mind.
Stop feel guilty for
Yeah.
being sad. Because people with
Yeah.
depression go through this. Depression
Yeah.
brings a lot of guilt, or a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. It's very hard to deal with.
Absolutely. I can understand that.
And obviously, a lot of other chronic mental health conditions or chronic illness in general also brings a lot of guilt, because then you are dependent on other people, and it just makes you feel somehow guilty, and maybe you're just a burden. These kind of thoughts come up, and it's very important to seek mental health support when these kinds of thoughts are overpowering you.
Yeah. It also makes you doubt yourself that
Yes.
and doubt your own identity, kind of creates an identity crisis
Yes,
even,
yes.
and you kind of feel so low that maybe I'm not worth it, but it's completely wrong because you just need a little bit of, therapy, and you need help from at least, if not therapy available at your place,
Maybe
then need
something else that
help
else
from
that
some
helps you,
trusted other.
Communicate.
Exactly. Something that makes your dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin go up.
Yeah. That
That's
was a
what.
wonderful conversation, Nomika. I really, really enjoyed it, and we should definitely do this again, because I have so many topics that I would love to discuss with you. This is such an in-depth conversation. Thank you for being here.
I am humbled. And I think we people are living both with NCDs to have more conversations. Being with you was being in an in-depth topic and in a conversation that actually opened my eyes too. Sharing views really helps.
Yes,
Amazing
conversations
to
help.
be with you.
Thank you, Nomika. Thank you for being here. Until
Thank
next
you
time.
so much.
Bye.
Until next time.